So last week we took a dive into my inbox and covered some of the Q&A that was coming my way about special education from both parents and teachers. This week we're going to dive into my session notes from a coaching session that I had with a parent. Let's go ahead and get started on this episode of the Special Education Inner Circle podcast. For those of you that might not know, I've been in the field a long time, about 25 years, professionally helping parents and schools build IEPs that work. One of the biggest challenges that we have inside of special education is transparent communication. Communication can be difficult in a lot of different situations, and when it comes to special education, we are no exception. It's what builds this us versus them feeling when we have communication that isn't working. So, the parent that I was talking to, and I'm coaching her through some of the concerns that she has about her daughter's education, a lot of the concerns come from not just a lack of communication, but communication that was not productive. So, what that means is this mom is getting a lot of feedback from her child's team, one teacher in particular, because her daughter is getting removed from class or having behavior reports written about her because of the noises that she's making. Now, the noises that her daughter are making are well known. It's one of the things that her daughter does. She has vocalizations to help her regulate her sensory needs. So, if her sensory system is out of control, if she feels like she's out of control, the vocalizations are going to go up. If the supports are not given within the classroom, vocalizations are going to go up. Now, the teacher is looking at the school policy of any disruption in class, then warrants a behavior report, and then the child often is then removed from class. Now, do you see the disconnect here? We know that the child is not making these vocalizations to disrupt the class. It's not something that's intentional to disrupt instruction or distract other students or the teacher. This is a need that the child has and it's not being met. However, the teacher feels like she is following the policy. So there's been a breakdown in communication where the teacher is expressing, I'm following school policy, and the parent saying, but my child needs something else. What happens is the parent can't find the right words and what to express to the team because the emotions are overwhelming. And for all of my parents who are listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The emotions just boil up like, why? Why do I have to say things over and over and over? And how come nobody's hearing me? But sometimes we have to switch the way that we say things to get on the same page with the education team in the direction that we need to go. So, for example, when the teacher sends home the next behavior report, which is probably coming quite honestly today, tomorrow, or the next day, I've asked the parent to make sure that she asks, how was the IEP implemented on that day? This needs to be a conversation about how is the child's IEP being implemented, and then how is that in relation to the child's vocalizations that are happening in school. Now, there's many, many layers. I know a lot of you are on fire right now as both teachers and parents. You're like, wait, but there's this issue and we need to address this and we need to address that. And there's a lot of different layers to a child receiving the supports that they need so they can access their education. Absolutely. But we have to start somewhere. And we don't have enough time on this one episode to cover all of the strategies that are going to have to happen to get everybody on the same page. But the first thing that the parent needs to do is to figure out, is her child's IEP being implemented in full? Because if it is being implemented in full and we are seeing an increase in vocalizations, then we need to look at what's happening in a bigger picture. Like, do we need different supports? Do we need some different delivery of instruction? Do we need to consider different services and placement? And I say that because something else happened in this same situation. Mom went into her daughter's backpack, pulled out a folder, and it was not the homework folder or like the end of the day folder. It was a folder that had a lot of sheets that were collecting data on her daughter's behavior, data that she was not aware was being collected. In fact, it looked a lot like the school was conducting a functional behavior analysis and collecting all of this information, probably to share with the parent that there needs to be a significant change in services. Unfortunately, because they're making this decision behind the scenes to collect a huge amount of data, specifically on behaviors that they consider negative, it now has broken trust. So I want to encourage you that if you are an educator who is in the situation where you're being encouraged to take a lot of data to position a conversation to change placement without including the parent in this conversation, please don't do that. Please find a way to work with your team to include the parent in on the conversation. I know it can be tough, but I also know, for example, when I was talking to this mom, she said, why didn't they just tell me that they want to collect more data? And we could have made sure that this is being done effectively. Instead, they're sneaking around and they're collecting information about my daughter so then they can try to shift the next conversation into a placement change. She says, I can feel it in my gut. And I said, you know what, considering all of the other things that you've told me, you're most likely correct that the team is working to build a bunch of information to say, hey, this placement is not working. We need to look elsewhere on how to provide services for your child. And that is unfortunate because now they've broken this trust and we're not having open conversations on what is working, what is not working, what supports need to be put in place to ensure the child can access their education in the least restrictive environment. And if more supports, perhaps in a different location, need to be provided for partial parts of the day, that conversation is now going to be very clouded and there's going to be a lot of mistrust. So this is the unfortunate conversation that I was having yesterday, and we have to try to get this back on track. And there's all of these different strategies of writing a very clear parent concerns letter, making sure that a copy of it goes in the file, making sure that the parent is taking her own data now. And now we're in this messy situation that eventually will get cleared up. But what's going to have to happen is some open conversation with some tough details from both sides so we can then move forward. So, again, I want to encourage you if you're a parent and you have a gut instinct that something's not quite right, and my child is showing things through behaviors, through whether it's through vocalization or, stimming in a different way or more often than they had been in the past, if there are any other clues that you're feeling as a parent, please start having that conversation with the school. And as an educator, as an admin, as a therapist, if you're seeing this, I know that it's a tough conversation. I know that you might even have a history with the parent of conversations not going well. But hiding information or collecting data behind the scenes to then bring a surprise to the parent, because that's what it feels like. Surprise, look, this has been going on. Parents become extremely disappointed, and then you are hurting them for years to come. And I know that because I've been doing this a really long time. I talk to parents when their children are in middle school or high school, and they say, back in elementary school, this happened, and now I don't trust anybody. So there's this trust that's very, very hard to rebuild. So please work to be that team that is not going to break the trust. Don't collect that data without letting the parent know what is happening. And I know, again, some of you are going to be on fire. You're going to say, wait, that's against ideal law. Wait, they can go, this direction. The parent can go this direction to course correct. And it might be a more aggressive or more assertive direction than I described right here. Yes, I know that there are all those different ways that we can take care of the situation. I know that there are different layers that may or may not have to happen. But here, the Special Education Inner Circle podcast and inside of our Master IEP Coach community, we're always looking to heal a bridge, to build a bridge, to course correct as best as we can without going into those more assertive or aggressive kind of tactics to go at that, because we want to make sure that we're working together as best as possible for the long term. Are those other avenues possible that they might have to happen? That's something different than what I just mentioned here, something different than, the parent taking their data and talking to the team and perhaps having an official functional behavior analysis happen, getting documentation of how the IEP is being fully implemented or not being fully implemented. Are there more layers? Absolutely. But this, as a starting point, quite often can course correct the direction where this is going before we have to go that route. So I want to encourage you that, again, as a parent, if you are like, yes, 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 and I had a friend who went through this and they had to do all of these things. I understand that. And sometimes that's necessary. But sometimes if we step back and we say, how can we bring to light all of the things that are happening right now and try to get things on the right path with clear communication and, of course, putting everything in writing, is it possible to turn this around? So we're going to take that approach. We're going to see what happens, and we're not going to wait too long. When I say, see what happens, wait and see is one of the, worst things to do, right? Like, let's just wait and see. That's not what I'm talking about. Let's take some steps, see what we can do quickly. And if things don't start to turn around, then yes, of course, there's going to have to be some more direct communication about what was right and what was wrong in this situation so it doesn't happen again. I want to encourage you that if you have any questions about this situation or maybe something else that you're going through, I'm going to put a link below where you can ask IEP questions. You can pop them into my inbox, and who knows, maybe we'll cover them here on the Special Education Inner Circle podcast. If you found yourself nodding your head yes, if you were like, yes, this is happening and I need to tell someone else about this, could you please make sure to like, comment, share wherever you are watching this? And if you're on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star review, it means so much. It helps us get more information out to parents and teachers so they can build IEPs together. I'll see you guys next time on the Special Education Inner Circle podcast.